It's the morning of day 2, and it was a strange night in a strange campsite. It was blowing all night. I had the earplugs in, so it didn't bother me too much. But I wake up this morning, and it's still blowing. The strangest experience last night. I was having conversations with myself, but not just your sort of normal conversations with yourself. I was like having conversations with 6 different people. It was really bizarre. One of the interesting things about this sleeping bag that I have is that typically I get into it and it is just super, super hot. So I was concerned last night with the wind blowing that I was going to overheat. And so initially I went to bed and didn't have it pulled over me, but the wind was blowing and it was so cold, so I pulled it over me, and I was just drenched in a sweat, and I thought I'd wake up just with the chills. But it's a breathable sleeping bag, and I guess what happened was everything evened out, and I woke up and it's perfectly toasty warm. Didn't zip the sleeping bag up at all, but didn't have any problems. And I think I woke up about 2 or 3 times last night, but not too bad. I'm not terribly rested. I'm still kind of feeling yesterday's effort, but today's effort should only be 3.5 hours. It's about 6:30 now, so I'll get up and maybe fish for a couple hours, and then I'll head on over. It's about 8 o'clock. It's still super windy. It's cold. I brought a 5-weight with me, so I'm going to fish that. It's Denny Rickard's camo tip line. I've never used it before. Now this is interesting. We've got the wind is blowing everything this way, which means in theory all the food is being blown this way. It's shallow right in here. If I had I do have my waders, but if I was staying here another day, I'd probably, and if it was warmer, I'd put my waders on and I'd wade out there. But you can see that this is kind of creating a current seam, and so that might not be a bad place to fish. I'm not seeing any bugs on or around the water other than mosquitoes. I don't have any mosquito larvae. I do have some small midge pupa, but they're probably too small. So I've got Denny Rickard's camo tip line on, which I think is a sink tip, and one of his Calabata sniffs, and a 12-foot leader. Don't ask me why I've got a 12-foot leader. It's what I had on this rig. So it's what I've decided to fish. It's about 10 o'clock, and I'm gonna head on over to Snow Lake. I've got to sort of backtrack a little bit to the intersection of basically the trail that takes you down to Middle Emigrant, and the trail that takes you to Grizzly Lake or Grizzly Meadow. So I'm gonna go past Grizzly and then meet up with the trail that comes up over Emigrant Pass, and that'll take me over to Snow. It's not the best trail. I mean, I don't know what the trail is between here and Grizzly Lake, but once I meet up with the main trail,
the trail down to Snow is probably my least favorite in the Emigrant. I thought about trying to go around and going down into Horse Meadow, but that would add about an extra mile to the trip, and it would add more more elevation gain. Once I meet up with the main trail, it's basically all downhill until just below Snow. So hopefully I'm just tired and I'm not getting sick. I guess time will tell. I'm almost at the top of Grizzly Pass. The ironic thing is it was basically just above my campsite, but there's no trail from here to where I was, which is a little strange given the fact that the trail down to Middle Emigrant is down there. But yeah, so I've basically done a giant U, and it's switched back to me up here. I'm gonna sit, grab something to eat, put on a jacket because the wind is ridiculous, and even with the climbing, I'm cold. And now that I'm going over the top, it's going to be downhill most of the way. So I'm 2 hours in. I'm on the Bond Pass trail now. That will take me down to Snow Lake. It's pretty much flat or rolling and downhill from here until Summit Meadow. And at Summit Meadow, it kicks up, and kicks up for about 3/4 of a mile and ends up at Snow Lake. That's Bond Pass. Now on the other side of this ridge is, on the other side of this ridge is the Hoover Wilderness and Yosemite. And I will be on the far side of that peak in 2 or 3 days. Far side of the farthest peak. So I will be on the far side of the farthest peak in 2 or 3 days. So I'm going to be following the trail down. Now right about here is where the trail gets really rocky. It's not very pleasant. Through the meadow, and then back up, and then over to Snow Lake. So I can see Summit Meadow through the trees, which means that I'm almost down. I've got to cross the meadow and then head up, and as I said, it's only 3/4 of a mile, maybe a mile to the lake from there. I'm starting the final pitch up to Snow Lake. Well, I'm at the lake, but boy, look at those white caps. It's just as windy here, or windier than at Emigrant Meadow. I'm gonna hike around to the outlet. The trail that I need to take tomorrow or the day after, depending on the conditions, goes up over that bluff, and so I want to camp on that side so that I've got, you know, so I'm not hiking an extra 30 minutes when I decide to do it. I think what I'll probably do is I'll try to fish today, and if not, you know, I'll stay the night and hope that conditions change tomorrow. And if they don't seem to be changing tomorrow, then I'll just head on over to Bigelow, or maybe even do Twin. I'm guessing from here it's going to be 5 hours to Twin, so I might want to stop someplace before there and just hang out for a night if I don't end up spending 2 nights here. Right over there, I think, is where I want to camp. This seemed like the perfect camping spot. It's windy, but they're all windy, but these trees are here, which are sheltering it somewhat. And I come down here, and I see these holes, but they're not rodent holes, and so I'm thinking to myself, what the heck could that be? So I'm all set to camp here, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, I decided to come over here to check this out, and lo and behold, what do we have? Site restoration, no camping, and it's obvious that somebody pulled it out. And what do we have down here? The same kind of hole. So it's pretty obvious that I can't camp there. There's an established site, but it's super windy. I don't even know what to say here. You can see how taut I've had to make my tent. It took me 15 minutes to get it up. It took me an hour to find a site, and once I decided on that site, it still proved to be too windy. So this was right next to it, and I've tried to position the tent so that it's not catching the wind, but oh man, it was ridiculous. And you can see it's not the best campsite. The front of the tent is sloping down, which always causes me problems. I can't sleep with my head below my feet. And you can see how taut it is. And when the wind comes up, it's just, it's ridiculous. But that's the best position that I could get it in. hopefully it doesn't tear away and it survives, you know, at least one night, if not two. I've moved my campsite. The other site was just too windy, and I was concerned that that it would just destroy the tent. And as I was going back and checking some of the other sites, I came across this. Definitely not my first choice in campsites. It's wet. It's gonna be buggy when the wind lets off. If it rains, you know, I'm in sort of a well, a wash area, so it's warm now, but it's going to be cold in the morning when the cold air settles down here. But on the upside, it's not as windy, and I guess that's the important thing for now. I've been here since 3 o'clock, and it's almost 5:30 now, and I haven't even broken out my rod. So I've decided to come over to this point. You can see the wind is pushing the water past the point, and then it creates like a current seam, and hopefully you've got fish sitting in that slower water, the water that's not moving as quickly. Man, it's cold. The wind chill is just unbelievable. I've moved spots, made a few casts, not catching anything. But that doesn't really matter. It's absolutely gorgeous here. And whether I stay 1 day or 2 days, this is amazing. In my tent, I fished for about 30 minutes. Didn't catch anything. I'm not feeling well. I'm not sure what's going on. I mentioned earlier that I felt nauseous last night. Today I was bloated. I was really super bloated, and I really haven't eaten anything. So bloated means gas makes me think carbohydrates, and I've been eating too many carbohydrates, but I really haven't eaten that much. Most of the food that I have is food that I typically take with me backpacking, the exception being the speed nut. That's new, but I've used it running and haven't had any problems. I don't know what's going on. I've been to the laboratory 4 times, and I'm just staying in my tent right now, staying warm, waiting for 7:30 to hit, anticipating that I'm going to have to go again. So it doesn't bode well for having a restful sleep.